In the dim glow of a midnight diner, grease-slicked hands trembling, Elena stared at a text that shattered her world. "Don't bother coming for Christmas. We are done pretending you fit in." But as a shadowy figure watched from booth 4, a single call unveiled a fortune in secrets, and a revenge colder than the ice forming in her heart. The stench of fryer oil clung to my skin like a second layer, thick and unyielding, as I plunged my arms deeper into the diner's grease trap. It was 11:51 p.m., the kind of hour where the world outside felt like a distant memory, and the only sounds were the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional clatter from the kitchen. My shift at this 24-hour hole in the wall was dragging on, my back aching from hours of scrubbing, my mind numb from the endless cycle of survival. Bills piled up like dirty dishes, nursing school tuition overdue, rent teetering on the edge of eviction, my beat-up car threatening to quit any day. But tonight, something cut through the haze. My phone buzzed insistently against my hip, vibrating like a warning I couldn't ignore. I fished it out with slick fingers, smearing grime across the screen. A notification from the family group chat. My heart stuttered as the photo loaded. A glossy image of my father, stepmother Brenda, brother Tyler, and sister Kayla, all beaming on the deck of a luxurious yacht I'd never heard of. Crystal champagne flutes glinted under string lights, the ocean a dark expanse behind them. The caption? "Family first." It hit like a slap, but the real blow came seconds later, a direct text from Brenda. "Don't bother coming for Christmas, Elena. We are done pretending you fit in." I froze, staring at those words, feeling a chill seep into my bones despite the steamy kitchen air. Then, a notification. My father had liked the message. No call, no explanation, just a digital thumbs up sealing my exile. Emotions crashed over me in waves, disbelief first, then a hollow ache that twisted into something sharper, colder. I didn't sob or hurl the phone across the room. Instead, I wiped my thumb on my stained apron, the grease leaving a dark streak, and let the screen's glow burn into my eyes. The last flicker of hope I'd clung to for them, the forced smiles at holidays, the rare nods of acknowledgement, extinguished like a candle in the wind. They were done pretending? Fine. But deep down, a whisper of dread stirred. What now? Alone, truly alone, in a world that already felt stacked against me. The phone vibrated again, jolting me from the spiral. An incoming call, no caller ID. In my life, unknown numbers meant trouble. Debt collectors hounding me for student loans, landlords barking about late rent, or reminders of how far I'd fallen. I almost let it ring out, sending it to voicemail where it could join the pile of ignored problems. But the timing gnawed at me. Exactly 1 minute after Brenda's text, as if orchestrated. Midnight loomed, and curiosity, or maybe desperation, won. I swiped to answer, my voice coming out flat, guarded. Speaking. "Is this Elena?" The voice on the other end was polished, deep, laced with an authority that screamed wealth and power. It wasn't the robotic tone of a telemarketer. This was someone who billed by the minute, someone used to being obeyed. "Yeah," I replied, irritation creeping in. I wasn't in the mood for games. "Who is this?" "Turn around, Elena. Look at booth 4. My stomach plummeted, a sickening drop like missing a step in the dark. The grease trap forgotten, I pivoted slowly, my sneakers squeaking on the linoleum floor. The diner stretched out before me, dimly lit and sparsely populated. A couple of weary truckers hunched over cold coffee, an insomniac staring into space. But in booth 4, isolated in the corner, sat a man who didn't belong. Upright with impeccable posture, he wore a charcoal suit tailored to perfection, silver hair groomed like a lion's mane. He held a phone to his ear, his gaze locked on mine, piercing through the haze of exhaustion. Panic flickered. How long had he been watching? I ended the call abruptly, my pulse thundering in my ears. Wiping my hands again, I approached, each step heavy with unease. The smells of my shift, stale oil, bleach, sweat, wafted up, making me hyper-aware of how out of place I must look next to him. I stopped at the table's edge, arms crossed. "Who are you?" My voice held no fear, just bone-deep weariness. What more could anyone take from me tonight? He gestured to the seat opposite, calm as if we were in a boardroom. "Sit down, Elena. My name is Arthur Sterling. I was your grandmother Beatrice's personal attorney for 30 years. I stayed standing, suspicion coiling tight. Beatrice had died 6 months ago, her passing a quiet ache I'd buried under work. My father had dismissed any inheritance. She died in debt, nothing left. But here was this stranger, dredging it up. What do you want?" Sterling's smile was razor-sharp, predatory, like a shark sensing blood. "Your father says many things, Elena. Most are costly lies." He reached into a sleek briefcase, producing a thick leather portfolio and sliding it across the sticky Formica table. It looked absurdly elegant against the chipped surface. "What's this?" I demanded, my hands itching to open it but held back by doubt. "This," he said, tapping the cover, "is the truth. Beatrice anticipated this exact moment, your family cutting you off completely. She instructed me to wait until they proved they no longer saw you as kin." My fingers trembled as I touched the leather, a mix of fear and intrigue building. What if this was a scam? But his eyes held no deception, only calculated patience. "Open it," he urged softly. Flipping the cover revealed not just a will, but a trove. Bank statements, deeds, and atop it all, a letter in Beatrice's familiar, shaky script. "I thought she forgot me," I murmured, voice cracking. Sterling shook his head. "She watched over you always. Your struggles with tuition, this job, your unreliable car. She didn't leave you nothing, Elena. She left you everything. And more, the means to collect what's owed." He glanced at his watch. Midnight. "Merry Christmas. You're no longer the outcast. You're the creditor." The words hung heavy, promising upheaval. I picked up the envelope, its creamy paper luxurious under my grimy fingers. Beatrice's handwriting looped elegantly, a reminder of secret birthday cards slipped past Brenda's watchful eye. Sealing my fate, I tore it open, Sterling watching like a sentinel. "My dearest Elena, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and Sterling has judged the moment right. I am sorry I kept you in the shadows so long. Sometimes, the sharpest truths must wait until the blade is poised at the enemy's throat. For 22 years, your father and Brenda have fed you a poison disguised as family history. They told you your mother was an addict, unstable, that she chose drugs over her own daughter and abandoned you. They wielded that lie like a club, making you feel small, defective, unworthy. Every time you cried, Brenda would hiss, "You're just like her, broken, just like your junky mother." Your father never corrected her. He let the words sink in, let them shape you into someone who apologized for breathing the same air. It was all fabricated, a cruel fiction born of jealousy and cowardice. Your mother, Sarah, was no addict. She was a pediatric nurse, gentle, tireless, the kind of person who stayed late to hold frightened children until they slept. She loved you fiercely, Elena. When you were 2, an electrical fire tore through our old apartment. The flames spread fast, smoke thick as tar. Sarah had a clear path to the door. She could have escaped unscathed. Instead, she turned back. She ran into the nursery, scooped you up, and wrapped her body around yours like a shield. She took the heat, the smoke, the collapsing ceiling, so you would not have to. The firefighters found you cradled beneath her, unharmed, while she was gone. She did not leave you. She gave everything to give you a future. I felt the paper tremble in my grip. The diner's background noise, the clink of spoons, the low murmur of the jukebox, faded to nothing. My chest tightened, a knot of grief and rage twisting together. All those years I'd carried the weight of being unwanted, the shame of bad blood. I'd made myself invisible, small, grateful for any scrap of kindness. But I wasn't abandoned. I was protected, saved, loved beyond measure. Sterling's voice cut through softly. Read the next part. It's the piece that explains the hatred. I forced my eyes back to the page. You've always wondered why Brenda despised you so deeply. You blamed yourself, thought you were too difficult, too messy, too much like the mother they claimed ruined everything. But the truth is simpler and crueler. Look at the photograph tucked inside. My fingers dug into the portfolio and pulled out a glossy 4x6. The woman in the picture was laughing, head thrown back, cradling a baby, me, against her chest. Dark hair framing high cheekbones, eyes shaped exactly like mine, the same slight upward tilt at the corners. It was like staring into a mirror across time. My breath caught. Brenda didn't hate you for who you are, Elena. She hated you because every glance at your face brought Sarah back. You are her exact likeness, the living echo of the woman your father loved first, loved deepest. Brenda could never eclipse a memory, so she tried to shatter the mirror instead. She punished you for bearing your mother's beauty, for reminding Robert of what he lost. And your father? He was too spineless to intervene. He traded his daughter to preserve peace with his second wife. The sadness that had lived inside me for so long began to fracture, then dissolve. In its place rose something colder, harder, steel forged in quiet fury. I wasn't the flaw in their perfect picture. I was the proof of their failure. I wasn't punished because I was broken. I was punished because I reminded them of something unbreakable. I set the photo gently atop the letter, my hands steadier now. Sterling leaned forward, voice low. Do you see it clearly now? Yes, I said. My eyes were dry, my voice even. They didn't reject me because I was worthless. They rejected me because I was dangerous to their illusion. Precisely. He tapped the thicker stack of documents beneath. And this file contains the receipts of how desperately they've tried to paper over that void. Vacations, renovations, luxury purchases, all financed on the promise of Beatrice's estate. They spent recklessly, believing the money was inevitable. Tomorrow morning, we go to the house. Let them speak first. Arrogance inflates like a balloon. It bursts loudest when it's fullest. I nodded once, the decision settling into me like gravity. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I finished my shift mechanically, the motions automatic while my mind replayed every revelation. When I finally left the diner, the cold air bit at my grease-streaked skin, but I barely felt it. For the first time, the weight on my shoulders felt different. Not heavier, but redistributed. I wasn't carrying shame anymore. I was carrying leverage. Sterling had given one final instruction before we parted. Arrive exactly as you are. Let them see the reality they're discarding. So the next morning, I drove my rusting sedan up the long, pristine driveway of Whitehaven Estate. The brakes squealed in protest, a harsh note slicing through the manicured quiet of the upscale neighborhood. The house rose ahead, sprawling, ostentatious, every inch screaming money recently acquired and loudly spent. In the driveway sat a gleaming pearl-white luxury SUV, still wrapped in a giant red bow like a Christmas gift to themselves. I parked behind it deliberately, blocking their exit just enough to make a point. In the rearview mirror, my reflection stared back. Diner uniform still on, apron tied, hair pulled into a messy knot, faint streaks of oil on my cheek. Sterling had offered me time to change to present appropriately. I'd refused. I wanted them to see exactly what they were throwing away. A grease-stained reminder of the life they pretended didn't exist. I climbed the front steps, each one deliberate. Before my finger reached the bell, the door flew open. Tyler stood there in a crisp polo that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He glanced past me, expecting someone else. Did we order takeout? Then recognition dawned. Oh, it's just you. He didn't step aside. I brushed past him anyway, shoulders squared. Inside, the air smelled of fresh paint, expensive lilies, and entitlement. Brenda was in the foyer, directing two workmen hanging an enormous abstract painting. Careful with the frame, it's imported. She turned, saw me, and her expression tightened into something sour. Elena, I thought my text made things clear. We have an important legal meeting today. No time for your usual drama. I'm not here for drama, I said calmly. I'm here for the meeting. She barked a laugh, short and cutting. This is about the estate, sweetheart. It doesn't concern you. She gestured grandly toward the back. Through floor-to-ceiling glass, I saw the transformation. The old wooden deck replaced by a sprawling stone patio, outdoor kitchen, infinity-edge pool with cascading waterfall. 50,000, she boasted, eyes glittering. Finished last week. And this kitchen? She patted the marble island. 40,000, direct from Italy. You've spent a lot, I observed quietly. We're investing in our future, she snapped back. Beatrice would have wanted us to enjoy her legacy. Besides, once the transfer hits this afternoon, it'll all be paid off in seconds. My father appeared from the living room then, dressed in a new suit that hung awkwardly on him, as if he wasn't comfortable in his own skin anymore. He glanced at me, then quickly away, studying the floor. You shouldn't be here, Elena. It's awkward. Awkward for who, Dad? I asked. Kayla descended the stairs, eyes glued to her phone. For us, she said without looking up. We're about to be millionaires, and you're you. It's embarrassing, Go back to the diner. I studied them, really studied. For years, their dismissals had carved pieces out of me. I'd begged silently for approval, apologized for existing, accepted crumbs. But standing in their overpriced kitchen, surrounded by debt they didn't yet realize, I felt only clarity. They weren't a family. They were a house of cards built on lies and borrowed money. The doorbell rang. "That's Mr. Sterling," Brenda announced, clapping once, greed lighting her face. She turned to me with venom. "You can stay and watch if you insist, Elena, but stand in the corner and try not to get grease on the new furniture." I moved to the wall, arms crossed over my apron. "Okay," I said simply. "I'll watch." Sterling entered like he owned the oxygen in the room. No handshakes, no polite small talk. He placed his briefcase on the marble coffee table with a deliberate snap that echoed like a judge's gavel. My family perched on their new sectional, leaning forward eagerly. I remained in the shadows, invisible, until I wasn't. "Well," Brenda said, her voice vibrating with barely contained excitement. "Let's get to the good part, Arthur. When does the transfer hit?" Sterling ignored the question entirely. He adjusted his reading glasses with deliberate slowness, the small gesture somehow amplifying the tension in the room. He pulled out a single document, scanning it as if refreshing his memory, though I suspected he knew every figure by heart. "Before we discuss distributions," he began, his tone dry and unhurried, "we must first address the liabilities. Based on credit inquiries run this morning and the receipts I've compiled, your family has engaged in rather aggressive spending over the past 6 months." He glanced down at the page. "One pearl white luxury SUV, $78,000, financed at 12% interest." My father shifted on the sofa, the leather creaking under him. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "One kitchen renovation, $40,000. Brenda's smile flickered just for a second. "One pool and patio complex, complete with waterfall, $50,000. The workmen had quietly slipped out the back door, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Designer wardrobes, vacations, miscellaneous lifestyle expenses, another $36,000. Sterling removed his glasses, folding them neatly. He looked directly at my father. "In total, you have committed to approximately $204,000 in expenditures made in anticipation of an inheritance that has not yet and will not materialize in the manner you expected. You have maxed credit cards, refinanced the home equity line, and leveraged every available dollar." Brenda's laugh was brittle. "It's not money we don't have. It's money we're about to receive. Just read the will, Arthur. Stop with the theatrics." Sterling replaced his glasses without comment. He lifted a heavier sheet of parchment, the official will, its edges crisp. "To my grandchildren, Tyler and Kayla." Tyler straightened. Kayla finally set her phone aside. "I leave the sum of $6,000 each." The silence was instantaneous, vacuum-like. "6,000?" Tyler echoed, voice cracking on the number. "You mean 600,000? Or 6 million split?" 6,000, Sterling repeated calmly. Beatrice calculated these amounts as appearance fees. She multiplied the hours each of you spent visiting her during her final illness by the prevailing minimum wage. She wished to ensure fair compensation for your time. Kayla's mouth fell open. That's insulting. Sterling turned the page without acknowledging her. To my son, Robert, and his wife, Brenda. Brenda's hand clamped down on Robert's knee, knuckles bleaching white. I leave nothing. 0. The word landed like a stone through glass. Brenda shot to her feet. That's impossible. She wouldn't. Sit down, Mrs. Caldwell, Sterling said. The command was quiet, but it carried the weight of finality. She dropped back onto the cushion as if her strings had been cut. I am not finished. He turned to the last page. My father's head jerked toward the corner where I stood, half hidden in shadow. To my granddaughter, Elena. The room seemed to shrink, every eye snapping to me. I leave the remainder of my estate, including investment portfolio, cash reserves, real property interests, and intellectual property rights. Total liquid value, approximately $2,500,000. The silence that followed was suffocating. No one breathed. The only sound was the faint tick of an expensive clock somewhere in the hall. Brenda's gaze darted from Sterling to me, then back again. Color flooded her face in ugly patches. 2 million? My father whispered it like a prayer gone wrong. Sterling closed the folder with a soft, definitive thud. The funds have already been transferred into a trust in Elena's name. The matter is concluded. For 3 long seconds, the room held its breath. Then Brenda erupted. It wasn't a shout. It was a raw, animal scream that ripped from her throat. She launched off the sofa, face contorted beyond recognition, eyes wild, mouth twisted. "This is fraud!" she shrieked, jabbing a trembling finger first at Sterling, then at me. "You manipulated her. You poisoned an old woman against her own family. She was senile. We'll contest this. We'll sue until you're both penniless." She began pacing frantically, knocking over a crystal vase of lilies. Water and flowers spilled across the hardwood, soaking into the expensive grain. She didn't notice. "Robert, call the police! She's stealing our money! That money is ours! We bought the car! We built the pool! It's ours!" My father sat motionless, head buried in his hands, rocking slightly. His skin had gone ashen. "We can't pay for any of it," he murmured, almost to himself. "Brenda, we can't pay for any of it." "Shut up!" she screeched, whirling on him before spinning back toward me. She marched across the room until she was inches from my face. I could smell her perfume, warring with the sharp tang of panic sweat. "You think you've won? You think you can stroll in here, reeking of fryer grease, and take everything we've built? Get out! Get out of my house!" Sterling cleared his throat, once, calmly. "Actually, Mrs. Caldwell," he said, "that brings us to the final item of business." Brenda spun toward him, chest heaving. "What? What else could you possibly take?" He opened a thinner file, withdrew a document bearing the bank's official stamp, and placed it on the coffee table. "Beatrice anticipated this exact scenario," he explained, voice level as a frozen lake. "She called it your inevitable collapse. She knew that once you believed the inheritance was assured, you would spend beyond reason to fill the emotional holes in your lives. She knew you would refinance this property aggressively." He slid the document toward my father. 6 months ago, the bank bundled your high-risk mortgage and sold it on the secondary market. Beatrice acquired it through a discreet shell company. My father's eyes lifted slowly, glassy with shock. What does that mean? It means, Sterling said, each word precise, that the bank no longer holds the deed to this residence. Beatrice transferred ownership of the note to Elena. He pointed one long finger in my direction. Elena is not merely the beneficiary of the will. She is your mortgage holder. And according to the records, your payments are 90 days delinquent. The scream died in Brenda's throat. She looked around wildly, at the walls, the ceiling, the spilled water, as though the house itself might suddenly expel her. Her knees buckled. She sank to the floor, right into the puddle of flower water, mascara beginning to streak down her cheeks in dark rivers. "She owns the house," Tyler whispered, voice small. "She owns the debt," Sterling corrected, "and she holds the immediate right to foreclose." Brenda lifted her gaze to mine from the wet floor. The arrogance had vanished. The fury had vanished. What remained was raw, naked terror. The look of someone who had finally seen the trap close around them. "She owns us," my father breathed. Sterling turned to me, expression neutral. "It's your decision, Elena. What would you like to do?" The room waited, suspended in the aftermath of detonation. My father looked up at me, eyes red-rimmed and pleading. "Elena, please," he stammered, voice cracking. "You can't do this. You can't throw us out. This is our home. We raised you here." "You didn't raise me," I said quietly. The words came out steady, without the tremor I'd always felt before. "You stored me here, like something you couldn't decide whether to keep or return. You let Brenda decide I was defective, and you never once argued." Brenda lifted her head from the wet floor, mascara carving black tracks down her cheeks. "We're family," she croaked, the words sounding hollow even to her. "You can't treat family like this." "Family," I repeated, tasting the word like something foreign on my tongue. "Last night, you texted me that I wasn't family anymore. You told me to take the hint. Well, I'm taking it. This isn't a family matter now, Brenda. It's business." I turned to Sterling. "Do you have the eviction papers prepared?" He reached into his briefcase without hesitation. "Notice to vacate within 72 hours. All documentation is ready for your signature." My father made a low, wounded sound, like air escaping a punctured tire. "We have nowhere to go," he whispered. "The cards are maxed. No savings. If you file, we're on the street." Brenda stayed on the floor, staring up at me with wide, glassy eyes. The room felt frozen in that moment, every breath loud, every heartbeat audible. I could have signed right then. I could have watched the sheriff arrive, seen the neighbors peer through curtains as boxes were carried out, witnessed the public unraveling of their carefully curated life. It would have been quick, satisfying in a sharp, immediate way. But quick was mercy they hadn't earned. I didn't reach for the pen. "No," I said. "I don't want to evict you." Hope flared briefly in Brenda's expression. She pushed herself up onto her knees, wiping at her face with shaking hands. "Not yet," I clarified. I walked slowly to the marble island, letting my palm rest on the cool, imported surface. I want this asset to generate a return. I want my investment to perform. Tyler's brow furrowed. "What does that even mean?" "You can stay," I told them. "You can keep the house, the pool, the kitchen, the SUV with the bow still on it. You can keep smiling for the neighbors, pretending you're still the owners of Whitehaven Estate." My father exhaled in shaky relief. "Thank you, Elena. Thank God." I cut him off with a look that felt colder than the winter air outside. "You'll stay as my tenants. You'll sign a standard 12-month lease. You'll pay full market rent." Sterling didn't need prompting. "Current market rate for a property of this size and location? $8,500 per month, plus utilities, landscaping, and maintenance responsibilities." The color drained from my father's face again. "Elena, we can't afford that. We don't have that income." "Then I suggest you liquidate some assets," I said evenly. "The yacht, the SUV. Perhaps Tyler and Kayla could find employment. I hear the diner where I work is always looking for graveyard shift help." Brenda staggered to her feet, trembling. "You're humiliating us. You're trapping us in our own home." "I'm giving you a choice," I replied, stepping closer so she could see her own reflection in my eyes, fearful, diminished. "You can leave today with nothing. Walk away, and everyone will know exactly how far you've fallen. Or you can stay. Pay me for the privilege of living in the shrine you built to impress people you secretly despise. You can wear the golden handcuffs you've forged for yourselves." She looked at Robert, pleading, desperate. She looked at the custom drapes, the high ceilings, the life she'd spent years constructing like armor. Then she looked back at me. "Will you sign?" she whispered. I let a small smile form, not warm, not cruel. The smile of someone who finally held the keys. "Good decision. Sterling has the paperwork ready. First and last month's rent due immediately. I'll accept a check." They signed in silence, hands shaking, ink smudging slightly where Brenda's tears fell onto the pages. No one spoke as Sterling collected the documents, as my father wrote the check with the last of their available credit. No one met my eyes. I didn't slam the heavy oak door when I left. I closed it softly, the click of the latch sounding final in the sudden quiet. The silence I left behind was thicker than any shout could have been. Outside, the cold air tasted clean. I walked to my rusting sedan, slid behind the wheel. The engine sputtered to life on the first try, a small, familiar sound that used to knot my stomach with worry. Today, it felt almost comforting. I patted the cracked dashboard gently. "One last ride, old friend." I didn't head home. Instead, I drove to a quiet overlook above the city, the lights below twinkling like distant stars. I pulled out my phone and dialed the nursing school's bursar's office. "This is Elena Caldwell," I said when the clerk answered. "I'd like to settle my outstanding tuition balance." "Of course. How much would you like to pay today? All of it. I read off the routing number for the trust account Sterling had established. When the confirmation came through, payment processed, account cleared, I felt something lift. Not just money owed, but years of dread, of scraping by, of believing I would never catch up. The weight I'd carried since I was 18 simply vanished. My next stop was the cemetery. Frost clung to the grass around Beatrice's headstone, the granite cold under my fingers as I brushed away dead leaves. I placed a printed copy of the signed lease agreement against the stone. "They signed it, Grandma," I said softly. "You were right. They chose the cage." I stood there a long time, breathing in the stillness. No tears came, just quiet gratitude. She hadn't only given me money. She'd given me back my mother's face, my own worth, the power to rewrite the story they'd forced on me. She'd turned the ghost they feared into the one who held the deed. "Thank you," I whispered to the wind. Back in the car, I opened my contacts. I scrolled slowly past the names that had defined my pain for 2 decades. Dad, Brenda, Tyler, Kayla. No anger surged, no hate burned. Just a clean, final detachment. I tapped edit, delete contact. 4 times. 4 quiet clicks. 4 chains broken. I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and pulled onto the highway. The road stretched wide and empty ahead. For the first time in my life, I could choose any direction, and I had the means to go. If you suddenly held the power to make your bullies pay rent to live in the life they built on your pain, would you let them stay and pay, or would you simply lock the door behind them? Tell me in the comments. And if you've ever watched the truth win in the end, hit that like button.